What is the difference between I'm going to make breakfast and let's do breakfast? Welcome to another 10 to 20 with Tanya. I'm Tanya, and today we're going to talk about make versus do. That collocation, which is just a group of words that works together, the collocation using make and using do. So I want to explain what that means, the difference that I just said, and I want to give you some hints on how you can remember these collocations, talk a little bit about the rules, and then give you some to practice. Okay, so let's start with the rules since everyone loves to understand rules, or maybe you don't. It depends on what works best for you. If you love to understand the rules, that's great. You can go to ChatGPT and ask them for the rules and then memorize it. But most of us, it works better if we use these collocations because if you spend time memorizing the rules, you could have spent time using the words, using the collocations. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that. And let me know, are you the kind of person who likes to memorize rules? Or are you the kind of person who gets upset or frustrated, or you try to memorize the rules and it is not helpful or it doesn't work? You know the rules, but then when you want to speak, you can't think of the word you want to use. Which kind of person are you? Which kind of learner are you? Let me know in the chat or in the comments, depending on where you're listening. So, making breakfast is the one we probably most of us understand. We make food of any kind. We can make breakfast, we can make lunch, we can make dinner, we can make coffee, we can make tea, we can make pasta, we can make pizza. So, whether you're saying that you're making a meal or a specific type of food, we make food when we do it at home. But here's the most important thing that sometimes we don't understand is that there are other ways to use this word with the same thing with food. So in the United States, anyway, we say, would you like to do breakfast or let's do breakfast? It doesn't make pardon me. It doesn't mean let's make breakfast, let's prepare it. It means let's have breakfast together. Let's eat breakfast together. So if someone says, let's do coffee, or would you like to do coffee? They mean, would you like to drink coffee together? Would you like to have coffee? Probably at a coffee shop. Would you like to do lunch? Do you want to go out to lunch? This is what this means. So, how are you going to remember these things? The best way to remember collocations is to practice them and to practice them in a way that will help you to remember. Here comes Pippa. Pippa wants to practice with us today. So, when we're practicing, there's a few things that will help us to practice in a way that is more effective. But before I get into that, I'd love to know what your questions are. Hey, Jeff. Hi, everyone. Where are you listening from? Put that in the chat. Or if you have a question, put it in the chat. Let me know if this is a topic that is helpful or if there are other topics you would like me to talk about. So, to remember, I'm going to give you a different example of one to remember so that you have more than one to practice. Let's talk about a project. Do you all think we do a project or make a project? Hey, Agni, it's good to see you. Do you think we do a project or make a project? Put your answer in the chat or in the comments. And then I'm going to tell you why this one is sometimes confusing or difficult and how you can remember this. So, what kind of project might you be talking about? This could be a project at work. If you're at work, do you do a project or make a project? Or this could be a project at home, like getting something done in your house, or a project where you are going to create something like cake, or maybe you're going to bake something and it's going to be your project to bake cookies. Would you say, I'm going to do a project or I'm going to make a project? I don't see any answers yet. I'm wondering if anyone is out there listening. Put your answer in the chat to let me know that you're here and that you're listening, and I will help you to understand why this one can be a little bit confusing and how you can remember it. Okay. All right. Julio, if I said your name correctly, depending on where you're from, Julio says, make a project. Okay. It depends. If we don't know, like if we just have a project and we don't have any more information, we say do a project. I am going to do a project. I am going to do a project this weekend. We don't have any other information, just that I'm going to do a project. We would say do. The reason this sometimes confuses us is the project. When you're being more specific, you might say make. So, for example, I'm going to make cookies for my child's school. In this case, it's making cookies, because remember, we're preparing food in the kitchen, so it's make cookies. However, we would still say that as a project, I'm going to do a project this weekend. The project is making cookies. This is one of the reasons that this can be confusing. But let me help you to remember how to use this. The first thing you want to do is choose one or two or three collocations, three groups of words that you use a lot or that are used a lot, so that you can decide it's one or two or three that you want to remember and you want to use them. You want to remember to use them. So let's use this one. I'm going to do a project. And so that you've chosen one. I'm going to do a project. Number two, you're going to practice, practice, practice. So step number two is to practice using the phrase, the collocation, the words, practice using them correctly. I have put two sentences in the chat, so you know they are correct. I would suggest you start by practicing these. You can write it out by hand. You could type it into your computer. You could copy and paste it. I suggest you write it down. Write it on a piece of paper. The reason is because writing is more effective. You can put it on your computer, you can put it on your phone. There's nothing wrong with that. It can be helpful, but when you write it out, it helps your brain to remember it. And there's reasons for that. But today, I'm just going to start by telling you it's helpful to write it down. So if you haven't already, run, get a piece of paper if you can, and write down the examples that I've put in the comments or in the chat. Now, if you're listening to the recording and you're wondering where is the chat, it's on the side here. If you make your image smaller on a computer, you can see the chat, and then you can write things that I have written down there. Okay, so once you've written some examples, if you wanted to write something, an example that you don't have me there to correct, then you can ask ChatGPT to correct your example for you. Do you use ChatGPT? Hey, Gloria, good to see you. Let me know in the comments. Yes, I use ChatGPT, or no, I don't like ChatGPT. Let me know in the comments. And if you like it, tell us why. And if you don't like it, tell us why. Put it in the comments so that we can learn from each other and get ideas from each other. Okay, now that you have chosen one or two collocations to use, you've started practicing, which is, I should say, this number two in our process. You want to make examples that are your examples. So instead of just saying, I'm going to do a project this weekend, make it specific to you. For instance, you could say, your maybe your best friend or your husband or your sister or your wife or whoever, say their name. Susan is going to do a project this weekend. Now you have a picture of this person in your mind and imagine the project. So here's what I like to do. I like to think of the different people I know and what kind of project they would be doing. And then I think of that. Let's see. Joe is going to do a project this weekend. And I think of my brother Joe and the kind of project he would be doing, and I imagine it. I don't have to say anything more about it. It's still the same sentence, it's still correct, but I'm practicing saying it with someone I know doing something they would do so I can get a picture in my head. Because when we connect these words to a picture in our head, then our brain is more likely to remember it. Do we have any questions yet about this? I don't see any questions yet. So if you have a question, be sure to write it down and let me know if you use ChatGPT or no. Okay, so then still we're on phase two, practicing. You've written it down, you've made the examples that are your own examples with people, the names of people you know doing something you would experience them doing. And now you're going to say this out loud with the picture. I like to walk around my house saying these things out loud. Sometimes I'm driving in my car saying it out loud. And this will help you to remember and connect it from your brain to your mouth so that you can start using it when you have conversation. Hey, Jeff, there's another Jeff here. We have two Jeffs here today. This is awesome. All right. Oh, Hulsak said you're not using ChatGPT yet. Why? Why aren't you using it yet? I think ChatGPT is one of the best tools we have right now for learning English or any other language on your own. Um, if you don't use it, why? Why aren't you using it? Let me know. Maybe it's not available in your country. Maybe you haven't had time yet. Let me know why you aren't using it yet. I do have several videos. I will link one in the description down below about different ways you can use ChatGPT, and it can be very helpful. So today, this is one way you can use it, but there are lots of other ways to use ChatGPT. Okay. Hi, Jean. Great to see you. Okay. Number 3 in our process of how to remember these so that you can use them is repetition, but not any repetition. We're going to use a special type of repetition. So the repetition, which is just repeating this, that we learned when we were younger or kids or whatever, was repeat, repeat, repeat like this. Do a project, do a project, do a project, do a project. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. If it helps you, keep doing it. However, we know now that there's a better way to do it, which is to repeat it with the entire example. And our example was, I am going to do a project this weekend. You can repeat that over and over if you want to, but there's even a better way. The best way is to repeat this group of words, do a project, in different examples and use spaced repetition. So if you have been live with me before, you've heard me say we need to use spaced repetition. Have you heard me say this before? Give me a thumbs up. or a yes or a no. I haven't heard you say this before. Spaced repetition just means we're going to put space in between the times that we repeat these examples. And we're going to change the space in between the times that we repeat. So maybe we repeat it 2 or 3 times today, and then we put a space and we don't do it tomorrow. And then maybe we do it the next day 1 time. Then we wait until the following week because now we have a bigger space. And then maybe we do it 5 times because we have more time, or maybe we have even more time and we do several of them. Then we put a small space, then we put a big space, and then maybe a medium space. Do you have any questions about spaced repetition and how to use spaced repetition? Because this is one of the keys to learning a language. It's how you naturally learned your native language, your mother language. And this is going to help you to remember how to use English. Okay, I'm going to give you another example while you think of your questions. Put your questions and your comments in the chat. I'm going to give you another example so you have another one to practice. Now, by the way, I'm giving you some of the most common collocations with make and do. So you want to learn the most common ones first so that you can add to that. And you want to keep using them over and over before you add new ones. This is really important to help you become more fluent. So we're going to go with make. I'm going to make a suggestion. I'm going to make a suggestion. So we make suggestions. This is confusing if you've learned the rules because it's an exception to the rule. But there are different rules to learn. So if you want to learn all the rules, like I said, that's totally okay. However, you can learn this without knowing the exact rules just by practicing. So I'd like you to make a suggestion right now. Think of a suggestion and write it in the comments. I have made several suggestions already today. So I'm going to write this for you. I have made several suggestions already today. What that means is I have told you things that will help you to learn English in a better way, in a faster way, in a more effective way. I have made, over the last 15 or 20 minutes, I have made several suggestions already today. If you have a suggestion on a way that works for you, if you know a way to learn, make, or do that works really well for you, it might work really well for someone else. So put that in the chat so we can see it. Or if you have a question, go ahead and write your question. I'm going to finish here in just a couple of minutes. Now, another suggestion I will make, I started making this suggestion, but I want to be clear. You could learn hundreds of make and do collocations or examples. This is going to be too much. We would say it will overwhelm you, and then you might start to feel frustrated. And a lot of people will just quit trying at that point, or they will stop giving themselves the chance to learn, and then for months and months or even years say they can't remember these, they can't learn them, they can't speak well, when in fact it's just changing the way you learn a little. People will often ask me, does it help me to learn this if I'm listening, if all I do is listen? Yes, yes, yes. There's a key to this. You want to listen to things where you understand most of what the person is saying. It would be great if you could understand 90 or 95% of what the person is saying. But even if you understand 80 or 85% of what someone is saying, this will be good. If it's less than 80%, I would go find something that you understand more. Find someone who speaks with a little more basic English or a little more slowly so that you can understand most of what's being said, I should say. All right. My last thing to suggest to you today is to suggest that if you have not seen my free webinar yet, that you click the link in the description below. When I post this in just a few minutes, the link will be in the description, and go sign up for my free webinar for women who have moved to an English speaking country, who speak with an intermediate to advanced level of English, and they want to be more fluent. I have a free webinar called 3 Secrets to Becoming More Fluent without wasting time and without doing things that don't work. And I'm going to give you 3 ideas, 3 things you can do in the free webinar with a bonus. So there will be 4 things you can do in the webinar. And you will also learn more about our She Speaks program. And if you're interested in joining She Speaks, our fluency program for women who have an intermediate to advanced level of English, then be sure you check the link below so you can get on the wait list. And if you do have any more questions that you haven't thought of or you didn't have a chance to write, questions, thoughts, ideas, examples, go put them in the comments of the recording. I see that Marcelo says Anki is a good app to do spaced repetition. Yes, some of the apps, I'm not sure if Anki does it the way that I described it, but a lot of the apps will use spaced repetition, and this is really important. Holzak says, on every Sunday, Tanya's class makes me happy. Thank you. I will do my best to learn to speak English. This is awesome, Holzak. I can see that you are in a very different time zone because I'm in Saturday and you're in Sunday. And Jeff, thank you for your kind comment. Thank you all for the hearts. And I will look forward to seeing you next week at the same time in the same place to talk more about how you can become more fluent in a more effective way. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.